As a quick little precursor, I ain't no speedrunner, I ain't no pro, I'm just a guy who's a hunter for fun. Kicking things off with the basic moveset, one of the most fundamental things to playing longsword is the spirit gauge. This is located in the top left-hand corner of your screen and is indicated by this little sword gauge located right underneath your sharpness meter. There are two main aspects here to the spirit gauge, the meter itself as well as the surrounding color, which can be colorless, white, yellow, or red. The basic bread and butter of longsword is using the standard non-spirit attacks to fill up your spirit gauge meter, and then using the spirit slash combo with the right trigger, which will drain the meter, but if you land the final hit of the combo, you will level up to the next color of the gauge. There are 5 main ways of leveling up the color of your gauge: destroying a wound with the focus mode unbound thrust, landing a spirit round slash at the end of a spirit slash combo, or after a successful foresight slash counter, a fully charged spirit charge slash, or a perfectly timed EI spirit slash counter. These will all level up the spirit gauge to the next color level, granting each of your moves more damage as you progress in color. Keep in mind that the gauge color will slowly drain over time and will eventually drop down to the next lower tier if you do not level it up in time. Furthermore, since red gauge is the max and cannot be topped off, it will begin draining as soon as you activate it, but it also has the added benefit of granting you some special red gauge exclusive moves which have some fantastic damage potential. In short, if you really want to bring the smackdown and master the longsword playstyle, think of it as getting the red gauge as quick as possible and trying to stay in the red gauge as long as possible. Moving on to the basic non-spirit attack combos, we've got the overhead slash combo, which is performed by pressing the triangle button over and over again. There's 4 moves in this combo, and it is entirely loopable. This is really the jack of all trades here. It's got good reach, good range, and isn't the fastest, but isn't the slowest either. Moving on to the thrust combo, this is your fastest bread and butter combo and is performed by pressing circle over and over again. Once again, it's loopable and only consists of 2 moves this time, the first one being a forward stabby thrust and the second being an upwards rising slash. This combo is definitely lacking a bit in the damage department, but has great reach and is also super useful for entering into special sheath or foresight slash quickly, since a move needs to be performed before either of these before you can actually execute them. Moving on to the fade slash, this is performed by pressing triangle and circle simultaneously, and this will diagonally slash in front of your hunter as your character jumps backwards. You can also move this directionally in a 180-degree arc behind you by inputting the direction with the left stick while doing this move. The fade slash is fantastic for filling the spirit meter quickly since it gives you a good chunk of it, and also for repositioning while also doing damage at the same time. Additionally, it bypasses the first slash of the spirit combo, acting as a shortcut directly to spirit slash 2. And speaking of the spirit slash is the 4-part combo which is activated by pressing the right trigger, and this combo goes spirit slash 1, 2, 3, and then finishes with the really important spirit round slash, which if landed on a monster upgrades your spirit gauge to the next color level. Keep in mind that at the end of the spirit round slash animation, you will actually sheath your sword completely, but this can be canceled by going into a special sheath instead in order to keep your combos going. As mentioned before, if you do a fade slash before starting the spirit slash combo, you actually skip right into the second stage of this combo, which is a really useful shortcut to know. Next up, we have the new to Monster Hunter Wilds Spirit Charge Slash, and this move is performed by holding down the right trigger, and you will begin to charge your sword, first going from level 1, 2, and then 3, and by releasing it at any of these points, you will go straight into that level of the Spirit Slash combo. However, the true potential of this move comes from the fact that when you fully charge it and release it after a full charge, you will do the final spirit round slash, and if you successfully land it, your spirit gauge will upgrade to the next color level. This is definitely one of the quickest ways to build your spirit gauge color to red. However, the speed at which you can build gauge is at the expense of the spirit combo slashes that come before in the normal spirit combo. Keep in mind you can hold at full charge indefinitely and can also move your character, albeit very slowly, towards a monster in order to make sure you land that round slash. Additionally, you can use focus mode with left trigger in order to reposition yourself and spin around. Moving on to the foresight slash, this counter move is performed by pressing right trigger and circle, and this will have your hunter lunge backwards and then follow up with a sweeping forward slash. This can be used as a counter with iframes, and if timed correctly to a monster's attack or roar, you will hear a nice little sound effect go off and see a special little animation. Then, if your perfectly timed foresight slash actually connects with the monster, you can follow up by pressing right trigger again to shortcut straight into the final spirit round slash, which, if landed, will level up the color of your gauge. However, keep in mind that this foresight slash to round slash combo will not work if your spirit meter is empty. Keep in mind as well, if you mistime this move, it will use up any spirit meter you currently have, not the color, just the meter, and you won't be able to do the follow-up round slash. This move also has directional input, and understanding the positioning and movement of it is key to leveling up the gauge quickly, as well as avoiding damage through the iframes. And just like Spirit Charge Slash, you should be using focus mode to make those micro adjustments and make sure you land on target. Next up is the Special Sheath, and this move can only be performed after other moves. It is activated by pressing right trigger and X simultaneously after any other input. This move sheathes your sword in preparation for either the EI slash or the EI counter. And you can't move while in Special Sheath, but it can be rolled out from, and it will also automatically sheathe your weapon fully if you stay in Special Sheath for too long. The first of the two options out of Special Sheath is the EI slash, where you press triangle when in Special Sheath and you do this double draw slash attack. But the true benefit comes from the fact that it also will refill your spirit gauge and do so automatically and continuously for a duration of time after your attack lands on the monster. This is super useful to keep a constant stream of meter going and also just does some pretty decent damage. The second move is the EI Spirit Slash, which is performed by pressing right trigger after doing a Special Sheath, and this move will send you in whatever direction you are pointing with your left stick and perform a slash. Furthermore, this is a counter, and if performed with perfect timing and it lands, then your gauge will not only level up colors, but you will also do a massive amount of damage and tank through any attack or roar with the iframes. Keep in mind though, just like Foresight Slash, you will lose meter if you mistime this, but you again won't lose any color. This move is one of the most powerful in the entire longsword kit because you not only deal high damage, dodge attacks, but you also level up your gauge quickly as well. And even if you mistime it, it's pretty useful for dodging attacks due to the fact that your guy goes absolutely flying away. This counter definitely has fewer iframes and requires more time for setup than the Foresight Slash, but it has that benefit of dealing a lot more damage and being more reliable for getting to the next color level. Finally, the final way to build up your gauge is using the focus mode unbound thrust, and this is performed by holding left trigger and then pressing right bumper. If aimed at an open wound, you will go into an animation where you bust up that wound, and this will also level up the gauge color one time for every wound destroyed. This is hands down the fastest way to level up your gauge, and you should always be keeping an eye on the wounds because it is just a free path to red and doing some absolutely nutty damage. Now moving on to moves that actually spend your gauge, the Spirit Thrust, Spirit Helmbreaker, and Spirit Release Slash combo. The Spirit Thrust, which kicks all of this off, is performed by pressing right trigger plus circle at the same time, and this thrusts your sword forward, and if it lands and you have at least white color on your gauge, you will launch upwards automatically into the air for the Spirit Helmbreaker. Keep in mind that you can change the direction of the Spirit Helm Breaker midair by pointing with your left control stick and pressing either triangle or right trigger as you fall. You can also cancel out of this Spirit Helm Breaker attack completely while in midair by pressing right bumper or X in order to roll out. As mentioned before, executing the Spirit Helm Breaker requires at least white gauge and will consume one color of your gauge regardless of whether you hit the monster or not. And the higher the color, the more damage you're going to do. So try not to miss this attack and waste your gauge, but if you know you're about to miss, make sure to start pressing X or right bumper to cancel out of it so you conserve your gauge. To perform the Spirit Release Slash follow-up to the Spirit Helm Breaker, you must be at red gauge when doing the initial thrust Helm Breaker combo, and then upon landing, immediately press right trigger again to do this extremely powerful move, which will consume a second color of your gauge and return you to the white gauge. Be aware of the fact that this move also consumes a gauge regardless of whether or not you make contact with the monster, so once again, make sure you aren't wasting it. Along with the Spirit Release Slash, there are some other special combos only available during red gauge, one of which being the Crimson Slash, which is a special moveset that replaces the typical default triangle combo while you're in red gauge. The Crimson Slash combo deals a whole lot more damage and is your bread and butter for while you're in red gauge, and then basically once you get down to low red gauge, that's when you should be doing your Spirit Thrust Helm Breaker finisher. The final red gauge exclusive move is the Crimson Foresight Whirl Slash, which is a special version of the Foresight Slash performed in the same way with the same button press. This move can be activated a whole lot quicker, does a whole lot more damage than Foresight Slash, and looks crazy sick. But the only downside is you can't follow it up with a round slash to level up the gauge since you're in red gauge. Additionally, it also uses a small chunk of your red color, so don't be spamming this. You definitely want to save it for actually countering the monster. And finally, Focus Mode. This is activated by pressing your left trigger and is primarily used for destroying wounds on the monster to level up your gauge. However, it can also be used to great advantage by using it to reposition while in Special Sheath for your Spirit Round Slash and any Charge Slash or any of your combos. There's a reason this is the whole new gimmick in Wilds because it's straight up busted, so make sure you use it. And finally, mount attacks. While riding your Sacred, aka Bird Brainicus, press triangle to do the standard mount attack where you'll swing your sword while riding on his back. And then if you want to do the dismount attack, you press triangle and circle simultaneously, which will send you flying off and doing a two-part slash. This airborne attack is super useful for mounting the monster if done enough times and is a quick way to get a free knockdown during your fight. So to wrap things up and summarize the longsword playstyle, the basic loop here is charging and then discharging your gauge. So first up, you'll want to charge up your meter, then perform the Spirit combo into Spirit Round Slash or the Charge Spirit Slash or the Foresight Slash Counter or EI Spirit Counter in order to level up your color. And then once at red gauge, you want to use your Crimson Slash and Crimson Foresight Whirl Slash until your red gauge is about to run out. Then right before it runs out, use your Spirit Thrust to Helm Breaker, and then I generally recommend only using Release Slash if you really want to try to cut parts, knock down, or break wounds, since it uses up another color and takes more time to get back up to red. Except don't do that at all. Use Release Slash every damn time because god damn it is stylish, and we're all about the fashion and the style here. As I mentioned at the beginning, I ain't no speedrunner, I'm just a guy who's a hunter for fun.